Good evening and welcome to Last Orders with me, John Shires, and our two politicians. Coming up on tonight's programme, the vote for Euro MPs who could be out of work in months. We talk to all 9 parties contesting seats in Yorkshire and the Humber 6 weeks after the UK should have left the EU. And steeling ourselves for the future, one of our region's biggest employers asks for government aid again as the white heat of Brexit causes financial uncertainty. Well, joining me tonight are the Labour MP for Leeds North East, Fabian Hamilton, and the Conservative MP for Thirsk and Malton, Kevin Hollinrake. Good evening to both of you. But first tonight, can you guess? It's had more twists and turns than an Olympic slalom, but Brexit has been on a downhill trajectory for some months as Theresa May's attempts to get a deal through Parliament have gone a little bit off-piste. There's news this week of a fresh vote in June, with many believing the government is still on thin ice, although its position was still being defended at Prime Minister's questions yesterday.
This is a government that wants to deliver Brexit and has been working to deliver Brexit. Sadly, so far, the House of Commons has not found a majority to do that. If everybody in the House of Commons had voted alongside with the government and the majority of Conservative members of Parliament, we would already have left the European Union.
Well, Kevin Hollinrake, can we start with you? Is there any chance of Mrs May getting this latest vote through the House of Commons?
Well, it will be easy. Been defeated several times already. I think people have got to ask what's the alternative. And a number of us, as the Prime Minister was saying, keep voting to leave. The government keeps voting to leave. So there are others who effectively are voting to remain. They might say they want to leave, but by voting down this deal, they are raising the possibility we'll end up in a two-way referendum between no deal and remain, and that'll be a remain outcome. And that's what some people privately are looking for. The best way to secure Brexit is to support the Prime Minister's deal.
You talk about alternatives, Fabian Hamilton. The only chance is if some agreement can be cobbled together with Labour. And is that going to happen?
Well, it could happen if the government was willing to allow it to happen. But I think it has to be subject to a confirmatory referendum. I think the moment the government says, right, this deal or that deal or whatever Brexit deal can be passed by the House of Commons with Labour support, it will be subject to that referendum. And if it was subject to that referendum, it would go through.
But you're talking about a people's vote. Would that not betray voters in the majority of our region, not yours, because your voters actually voted to remain, but wouldn't that be a betrayal of democracy?
No, it wouldn't, because surely democracy isn't a one-time only event. It isn't, here's what you know about the EU and what you don't know about Brexit, make a choice between the known and the unknown. I mean, that isn't democracy. People voted for all sorts of reasons to leave. Amongst them, genuinely, they wanted to leave the European Union. But many told me they voted because they wanted to give David Cameron a kick. So let's say to people, OK, these are the terms on which you're leaving. Now you decide. And I'll tell you this, John, if they do decide again to go for Mrs May's deal or whatever deal's on the table in a referendum, that'll be the end of it. We will, all the Remainers will vote to come out on those terms.
But the majority of people just want Jeremy Corbyn to get on and do a deal.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't think that's quite true, actually. I think the majority of Labour Party members, the majority of voters in my constituency want Jeremy Corbyn to say, yes, the people voted for Brexit. They didn't know what Brexit deal they were voting for, so let's put it back to the people and have that second referendum. That will resolve this for once and for all.
You're shaking your head.
No, it won't resolve it.
Why not?
Because if there's another referendum and we vote to remain, it will be it won't be decisive. It'll be massively divisive. The reality is, I voted to remain, but the country voted to leave, and we should respect that. And the reality is, the people who are calling for a people's vote or a confirmatory referendum are people who want to remain in the European Union, by and large, and almost without exception. So I think that is a backdoor opportunity for people to reverse the result, and that would be seen as totally unfair. Well, the reality is, I think this is the last chance for the Parliament to vote for what is a sensible deal. We control our borders, we control our money, we control our laws, and we continue with a free trading relationship. It's virtually identical to what Labour say, yet they won't vote with us. It's absolutely disgraceful. It's just trying to wreck Brexit. That's what it's for.
You know why, Kevin? Because whatever deal Theresa May agrees with Jeremy Corbyn, She's not going to be Prime Minister in a few weeks' time.
You know as I do.
Any new Prime Minister could just reverse that and say, that's
Jeremy
it.
Corbyn wants to cause chaos to get into number 10 Downing Street. That's his purpose.
Oh, come on.
It is not about delivering on the referendum
result. Any leader
result.
of the opposition wants to be able to become
cynical.
Prime Minister.
This is a national endeavour. It's a national endeavour. We should
Kevin.
work together to deliver in the national interest.
How is having another referendum anti-democratic? That's what I want to know.
Because people
you want more
voted once
democracy, that's
already.
not democracy. Come
Fabian,
on, your government was voted in 2015.
Fabian, you know,
and should we just not have any more elections?
all the voices calling for a second referendum want
Not
to
all of them.
remain in the European
No, I don't
Union.
think- no, that's
You
not
tell
true.
me who doesn't.
Well,
Tell me, of course, who doesn't.
People I speak to in my
No,
constituency.
I'm talking about parliamentarians,
Well,
because
I
they're
don't
the
know, I
people with
can't
the
name
choice.
parliamentarians who
You're
say
exactly
that.
right, because they all want to remain in the European Union.
Because we know that this is incredibly damaging for the country.
It is cynical and it's
not
against the national
cynical.
interest.
Why is it cynical to be? We're in favour of the national interest.
Because
Staying
just
in
be
the European
honest.
Union
Say if you
is
want
in
to
the
stay in the
national
European
interest.
Union. Just say if you
well,
want to stay in the European Union.
I voted to revoke Article
and that's the
50.
point.
Let's talk about the
absolutely.
politics of this, Fabian. Hasn't Kevin got a point here that shouldn't Labour be held to account? Because you're obviously looking on with glee as the Tories implode, but by standing on the sidelines, you are actually effectively reneging on the results of the referendum. And what's more, you are seen to be doing it for political gain. And aren't you going to get a
come
kicking
on.
as well?
You mean the whole thing wasn't for political gain in the first place?
Well, of course it
David Cameron decided to announce this referendum before the 2015 general election for political gain, to stop the leaching of votes to UKIP. So don't tell me this is about political gain on one side and not on the other side. The fact is, most of us, most Labour MPs believe this is damaging to the country to leave the European Union on the terms
You
that Mrs
voted
May
for the
suggested.
referendum, Fabian.
Yes,
It
we did.
became Labour
Yes, we
Party
did.
policy a
Yeah,
referendum.
we
You
voted
cannot
for the
twist the argument
referendum.
like that.
No, we
The
voted
reality
for
is
the
that
referendum.
We gave people the vote.
And-
They decided to leave. We should make good on that promise.
Well, I think a lot's changed in 3 years, quite frankly, and people have the right to say they've changed their mind, and if they haven't changed their mind, so be it.
And it's principally changed because some people have tried to frustrate the process of leaving. That's
Kevin,
a reality.
No, because some people have looked at the deal that's on offer and said this is not good
It's
enough.
virtually the same deal you're proposing.
No, it's not.
Labour voted.
Union.
Labour
You
voted.
don't want a customs
you
union.
voted. You voted. You whipped your members of Parliament to vote for something called Common Market 2.0. In that, it is a customs arrangement, a temporary customs union, which is exactly what the Prime Minister's put in her deal. There's nothing between the two different
We're arguing
positions
for a permanent
other than
customs union.
you're taking a cynical opportunity to try and cause chaos,
I mean,
remain in the European Union,
Kevin,
and
I'm
take
sorry.
over control of
It's-
this country, which would be a
It
disaster.
beggars belief for you to say that this is cynical on our part.
It's
I think
absolutely.
the
It
whole
is absolutely cynical.
process of this referendum and the vote was cynical from the start.
Okay, so where does it leave us? That's the most important thing. Are we heading for a no-deal Brexit, or are we heading for a people's vote, a second referendum?
I think if this vote doesn't go through, if this last opportunity doesn't go through, I think at that point what we will end up, in my view, is at a people's vote. And it'll be a people's vote between no deal and remain. And I think that the conclusion to that will be to remain. And that's what some people are trying to contrive this position to get to. And we should take, instead of that, we should take this last opportunity, and all the people out there should tell their members of Parliament to vote for this deal. Let's get it through and let's leave the European Union.
A final word?
Well,
no deal Brexit or
leaving
referendum?
the European with no deal, leaving the European Union with no deal is a disaster for the country. We need a referendum. People need to decide, is that what they want, or do they want to remain in?
Okay, I think the only thing you two are going to agree on this evening is the fact you're both very sorry that Leeds United were knocked out of the
Absolutely,
Championship playoffs yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the European elections, which we have to hold for legal reasons because we didn't leave the EU in time. Of course, anyone elected will probably have to quit their jobs if and when we do leave. So what's the point? Well, our political correspondent Joe Pike has been meeting candidates from all 9 parties contesting in Yorkshire and the Humber, and over a nice cup of coffee, all cups of coffee are nice, of course, he asked them why people should vote for them, given that their tenure might well be short-lived.
They are the elections that were never supposed to happen for jobs in Brussels that could be axed within weeks. So as the grind of campaigning begins again, we've brought together representatives from all 9 parties to spill the beans on Brexit.
We are the the party that brought around the referendum in 2016. We are the only party that has a viable exit plan, which Gerard Batten wrote in 2017. So we've got a plan. For years they've been saying, UKIP is finished, UKIP is dead. We've been here 26 years, we're still fighting, we're still here. So, you know, the mainstream media keep putting this story out, and I'm here, I'm UKIP. We are fighting on, we will carry on, and we are a political party that's standing all season.
If we're going ahead with Brexit, it has to be a Brexit that works for Britain without destroying our economy, costing thousands of jobs, harming people's lives. And that's not what we've got on the table at the moment, because the government's deal is a rubbish deal. Of course, in Yorkshire we only have 6 seats, so it's quite a high threshold to even get 1 seat. So there is indeed a danger that people will, as it were, waste their votes in terms of seats by voting for a smaller party.
Right, what are you having to drink?
I'll have some Yorkshire tea. We believe that actually we should be getting out of the European Union. People voted to do that across this region, the Yorkshire and Humber region, and across the country as a whole. And Theresa May has been doing her very best to make sure that we do get out. We hoped we were going to be out by the 29th of March. That's what I thought. I'd got everything packed up in Brussels, ready to return. That didn't happen. It's not a vote for dithering and delay at all. It's the only realistic chance that we have of getting out of the European Union. And I hope that people can see that very clearly this time next Thursday.
We've got a clear message to the voters in Yorkshire and Humber. If you want to stop Brexit, vote for the Liberal Democrats. We're the largest Remain party. You only have to look at the local council results a few days ago. We got to over 700 gains across the country, including here in Yorkshire, right across the board in York, Leeds, Sheffield. So we are the party Remain. Look, let's be honest, Parliament has not got the answers. Theresa May has now tried 3 times to take her deal. Jeremy Corbyn's not helping either. It's clear the only way out is via a people's vote.
We're a Eurosceptic party, and we believe that England is being shackled by not only the European Union but also by the United Kingdom as well. English people are the subject to laws that are passed in the British Parliament. They have no parliament of our own, and we believe that's totally wrong. And if we can leave the EU, then we can also get a much better deal by leaving the United Kingdom as well.
So Yorkshire voted to leave the European Union, and I believe we should respect that. We're bringing together people from both sides of the argument, trying to find a sensible compromise so that we can actually move on from this and actually push forward on resolving some of the issues that are plaguing our region. Issues such as healthcare and transport that I just mentioned, which have been neglected throughout this entire process. Our job is to represent the needs of their part of the country.
Now more than ever, people are starting to wake up to the fact that we have got a massive climate crisis and that we need to do something about it. And again, it's always been the Greens where a lead and everyone else kind of follows. It was the Green Party that actually first put forward a climate emergency motion. Everyone's kind of been getting on board.
But isn't a vote for the Greens a wasted vote?
If anything, people are disillusioned with the 2 main parties, and people are looking for real alternatives, looking for an alternative where it's consistent, people can actually get behind, and actually going to be loudly and proudly campaign on the issues that actually matter to us.
And what do you want to drink?
I think they should vote for our party if they come from Tory or Labour parties, are dissatisfied with the stance on Brexit and want a party that is clearly and unambivalently pro-Remain and pro-people's vote. I think there's a very important period that we go through up until October in the European Parliament, and that is approving and choosing the new European Commission. So to be involved in that, at least, is very key, if that's the only job we get to do.
If people believe in democracy and that the system in the UK is not working, then they should vote for the Brexit Party. Actually, on the doorstep, and certainly for our party, the issue of democracy has become really, really important. But until the members of Parliament in Westminster realise they are about to lose their jobs, then they will not actually behave in a proper manner and reflect what the population voted for. There is a lot of anger out there amongst people who voted in the referendum that their MPs have actually betrayed them.
Well, that was Joe Pike with candidates for Yorkshire and the Humber. Now, the polls will take place in the UK next Thursday, the 23rd, with the results announced on the following Sunday. That's the 26th of May. Right, let's move on now to one of the country's most famous businesses, which is seeking government help again to stay afloat. The main plant for British Steel, which employs 4,500 people, is in Scunthorpe. And news of another financial plea, this time because of what's been described as Brexit-related issues, has caused concern in the town, as well as other British Steel sites, which include a research and development office in Rotherham. Well, earlier this week, there's been this reaction from Scunthorpe's MP and a reply from the Prime Minister.
The speculation today is very unsettling for local families and people working in the steel industry, whether at British Steel or in the supply chain. But it's come rather out of the blue. If the speculation is correct, this is a problem created by the government's mismanagement of the process of leaving the European Union.
I can't comment on the speculation about the future of Greyball Capital-owned British Steel. I realise this is a worrying time for those who are employed there and their families. Last month, the government did enter into a commercial agreement with British Steel relating to their obligations under the EU emissions trading scheme, which has provided support to that company.
Well, Kevin Hollinrake, the government says it has helped. Is it doing enough?
Well, it's very difficult, isn't it? And in normal circumstances, I don't think it is right that the government would step in and support a business that operates in the normal commercial markets. But nevertheless, these are exceptional times. It had to step in because of the delays at leaving the European Union on the emissions trading scheme. It's a worrying time for the company and mainly for the people who work for it. So we've got to look at this situation and decide whether this is a temporary situation relating to Brexit, relating to uncertainty. I do speak to lots of businesses that are losing orders because of the uncertainty. So we need to look at it in a slightly different light than we would do normally. But nevertheless, this is still taxpayers' money. We've got to spend that very wisely.
What should it do, Fabian Hamilton?
Well, clearly we can't afford or allow British Steel to make 4,500 people redundant or to shut down. A lot of countries do subsidise their steel production, of course, not necessarily within the EU. But Donald Trump's 25% excise duty on British Steel doesn't help, I have to say. But I think Kevin's right. We have to assess whether the business is fundamentally sound, and it is the uncertainty caused by Brexit that is helping to lose orders and making life less certain for the workers there, or whether it is Brexit itself.
Are you convinced that when the company talks about Brexit-related issues, that it's not just jumping on a bandwagon, maybe?
Yeah, no, I'm not convinced. I mean, and the people looking at this need to look at it very carefully. But there's, the anecdotal evidence that I've seen, I talk to some businesses who are losing orders because of Brexit. And they're not going to government asking for cash. But in this situation, it's a very sensitive area, and lots of their customers will be international, and lots in the European Union. So somebody's got to go into the business and look at it and see if it is just a temporary problem around the delays of departing the European Union, and that because that's causing the uncertainty and causing the difficulties, and make a judgment. It's not an easy judgment to make.
Much as Jeremy Corbyn might want to do it, the government can't bail out every ailing industry, every ailing company.
No, that's absolutely right. I mean, we have to, and I don't think Jeremy Corbyn wants to bail out failing businesses just because they're failing. But I mean, this is a...
No, he probably wants to nationalise them.
But this is a strategic business that was once nationalised. But I think it's very important these days that we look at whether it's structurally sound, whether it can make a profit, what the issues are, and it won't help when friendly countries are charging such huge import duties.
Let's just widen it out to HS2.
That's widening quite a lot.
The House of Lords Economic Affairs Committee says the construction of HS2 should have started in the north rather than the south. Would you go along with that, Kevin?
Totally, absolutely. The journey for people in my constituency, their principal concern is not getting north to south or south to north, really. It's about getting from east to west. So part of the HS2 project is something called Northern Powerhouse Rail, which connects Liverpool to Manchester, to Bradford, to Leeds, to Hull, and then to York and out to Scarborough. So all these things are a great opportunity to really make our economy firing on all cylinders. So that's the investment we really need. HS2 is important, but that Northern Powerhouse Rail is much more important.
But I think also, no, but if I may, John, what's also important is being able to get round our large cities like Leeds and Bradford. And the fact is that congestion is so bad in cities like Leeds. It's not only bad for the environment, but it wastes a lot of time and energy. What good is it to take half an hour, 45 minutes off the trip from Leeds to London when it takes you nearly an hour to get from Roundhay to Leeds City Station? And what we need is much more investment in a rail-based public transport system in a city like Leeds, the largest city in Europe with no rail-based public transport system.
Are you worried that if the southern section overruns at this, that the northern section won't be built at all?
Yeah, definitely. I am worried. But I still think that we need much more investment in local public transport. That will give the biggest benefit to the most number of people for the least money.
Well, you talk about that. The Taxpayers Alliance wants HS2 scrapped altogether, and then that money spent on a variety of schemes, including a rapid transit system in Leeds. That's one of the options that could easily be built with the money that it's costing to build HS2. Why don't you support that?
Well, it's very true. And I mean, the fact is we've already made such a lot of investment in HS2. And I agree with the House of Lords. It should have started in the north. And Kevin's right. The east-west, west-east rail route is perhaps more important to us in the north of England than getting to London a few minutes earlier.
So if HS2 is a red herring, Kevin Hollinrake, why do you support it? Why don't you just go for the option of spending the money in east-west transport
because
instead?
It shouldn't be either or. And the question you ask is absolutely right. If there's an overrun, does this put Northern Powerhouse Rail at risk? And the answer should be no. What I have done, and another 80 parliamentarians, I don't know if Fabian probably wasn't allowed to because of his ministerial responsibility or his shadow ministerial responsibilities, but we've written to the Chancellor Exchequer saying we want to support the Transport for the North, Strategic Transport Plan, £120 billion of investment across the north over 30 years, including Northern Powerhouse Rail. That delivers lots of the things Fabian was talking about. It delivers Northern Powerhouse Rail and the A64 between York and Scarborough, which is really important. But all these different schemes, lots of different schemes, but they should not be at risk because of big projects in the south, be it HS2 or the Oxford-Cambridge corridor or anything else.
Okay, well, I think the only thing we can agree on, we're probably all going to get a train fairly soon.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, but that's it for tonight. Thanks again to both my guests, Fabian Hamilton and Kevin Hollinrake. We are back next month with all the latest news and views from Westminster. That will be in flaming June. Who knows which party will be echoing that sentiment? Thanks for watching. From all of us here, good night.